Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I just started recording now. So, I'm recording everything on my end though, like through OBS, because I'm streaming into this through OBS. So I don't think it'll pick up. I mean, I know it won't pick up anything anybody says. Um, so if you ask a question and I repeat it, that's why. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me and doing this. Um, yeah, big ups to Biblioteka Records and Sophie for putting this all together. I believe there's another workshop next week with Sister Atlas about field recordings, which is super cool. Nice. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much, Sophie. It's like 3 a.m. in South Korea for Sophie, so like much dedication, much respect for that. Um, all right, let's get into it. We know I'm going to get rid of that because it started. Workshop gone. All right. So hello, my name is Erin Corbett. Just looking at the meeting, I think most of you know me. So pronouns are they, them, or she, her. As seen. Boop, 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 boop. I'm a musician, obviously, a producer, artist. I got really excited when Sophie asked me if I wanted to do a workshop. I knew immediately that I wanted to do something on live music because when I was starting out, um, I had a real hard time figuring out what exactly to do, like what even it meant to make live electronic music. I came from a background of like being in bands and being like a guitar player. Um, oh, another person. Hello, welcome. Yes, so yeah, when I was starting out, I was a guitar player. Didn't know much what I was doing, and when I was getting into making electronic music live, I stepped on a lot of rakes. I was just like stepping on rakes as I was going, just walking down with like big keyboards, not knowing how to like, just having no idea how electronic music was supposed to be performed in quotation marks. Um, a lot of frustrations. Eventually, though, I did figure out kind of a system that worked for me, and I kind of started thinking of live music in a different way. Um, so doop boop ba doop boop performing electronic music live exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. So let's start with an obvious question. Why would I? Oh my god, I can't keep tabbing back and forth. I'm sorry. I'm not. It's going to take me a while to get used to this. Okay. So what's the point of performing music? Obviously, the whole difference between like recorded music and live music is a very modern distinction. Like all music up until yeah, my screen's backwards. Oh, good god. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is going to be pretty loose. How do I do this? How do I It's backwards for you. It's not backwards for me. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Dun dun dun. Can I just like is that better? If I do that, and then does that make sense? Is that better? Is that worse? Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Um, so, oops, that's not what I meant to do. This is also going to be a workshop on me learning how to use Microsoft Paint, which is, I think, great. Oh my god. So we have recorded music. very new. For most of human history, all music was live, and the distinction between recorded and live music like just didn't exist. Um, but now we have recordings. We can put down a song, and it stays the same way forever. Um, so why do we still have live music? Why do we still enjoy going to live music? Obviously, it's a special thing, very special. It's good to hear music loud, first of all. But more importantly, it's good to be like around people, around the performer. It's a participatory temporal thing. It's like you're in a specific place in a specific time, and it'll never be replicated again. And it's like a magic thing. You can listen to one recording of a song over and over 1,000 times, um, but you can only like you can see a band play many times, but you can only see like a band play on like May 13th, 2006 in Winnipeg once, like just for example. Um, so it's very special, very one of a kind sort of scenario. Um, when I boop boop boop, I'm gonna go to Google Maps. Going to give you a little backstory on me. Just a little bit. Oh, before I do that, sorry, my brain's all over the place. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to be jumping around a bit. I'm going to be talking a bit about like the workflow. I'm going to be going over all of my stuff here. But before I do that, we're going to go through like an Ableton Live project and kind of just like build something from the ground up. Because I'm much better at like showing you as I'm doing a thing than I am just explaining things. So, I hear another person has arrived. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, Paul. It's not a Behemoth shirt. It's a Girl Juice shirt, funnily enough. It's, go look up Girl Juice. What? Oh, your shirt. We're not here to look at Joel. We're here to look at me. Damn it. It says Girl Juice. It's a webcomic. It's really sweet. Yes, fantastic. Okay. So, what I have figured out that works for me. Solid color. There we go. Yeah, perfect. So, again, just a little background. I am from a little town over here called Kenora. Boom, right there. Closest city is Winnipeg, 2 hours to the west. Next closest is Thunder Bay over here. 5-hour drive. Sorry, yeah, 2-hour drive to Winnipeg, 5-hour drive to Thunder Bay, and then an 8-hour drive to Minneapolis. So the live music that I grew up around was like a lot of local bands, which was like kind of like rock or folk, or it was like bands that would tour across the Trans-Canada Highway. And hello, welcome. Boom, so many people. So sometimes there'd be bands coming across the Trans-Canada Highway, and they would like play Kenora on their way to Winnipeg because it was one of the few towns really in the area. And so I grew up with a very like boomer-esque classic rock mindset of like live music is performed with musicians all playing a specific instrument, playing them together. You got like your guitarist, your bassist. If you want to get fancy, you might have a keyboard player, a drummer, obviously. Very clear cut. All the electronic music that came to me was generally through like film soundtracks or video games in particular, which both those things are not at all live things. So the point of all that is just to say that like it wasn't until I moved to Mississauga where I went to Metalworks Institute for Audio Engineering and Production. And that was when I actually started to learn how these electronic sounds were made, because there was classes on like synthesizers and MIDI and stuff like that. And that really like expanded my whole world. I got really into making electronic music just like in a DAW, doing a lot of um, just editing and oops, oh my god, I'm all over the place. Making music in a DAW, sitting at home with headphones, overdubbing keys and stuff. Um, Not with the intention of performing it live, because I wasn't even close to there yet. I knew I did want to start performing live again, because just going back to my time in Kenora, when I was playing in bands, when I was playing like guitar or bass, like those were like the absolute most fun I've had in that town, is when I was able to like get on a stage somewhere and just like wild out, do some windmills, like power slides, that sort of thing. Anyways, so I'm living in Mississauga. I'm studying studio stuff, and I'm learning all about how electronic music is actually made, but I still don't know anything about how it's performed. And I remember like going around YouTube trying to find like um, just like just any kind of like video document of like an electronic artist performing, and it was always just the most confusing thing. I remember seeing like a video of Aphex Twin behind like a desktop computer or something on stage, and I just had no clue what was going on there. um I would often see like singers just singing, and then like there'd be like one guy in like the background on like a table with like some stuff, and then like again, no clue what was happening. um so when I started performing live, it was from the um, kind of from the experience of, again, being in bands. I would look to like I got in through like indie rock, kind of like stuff like the Postal Service, and like Radiohead's electronic era type stuff, kind of post rock bands that like dabbled in electronics was sort of my entry point. And again, it was very clear cut what was going on. You'd have like band members, each would have kind of like a set of synths, and you could kind of tell, one guy was playing bass lines, one guy was like, I don't know, twiddling a delay knob or something. Um, and so when I started to take the music I had recorded, and bring it to a live situation, it was kind of modeled after that. So I got like a band together. I was bringing these like a huge keyboard, like a little bass station, a mono synth on top. I had like an effect thing, and then I would bring like my computer that had a couple different like drum sounds on it, and it was just so much stuff that I would have to bring to every show. Um, I would send outputs from every instrument like directly to the sound guy, which I'll get into in a second once I start actually talking about um, what I'm here to talk about. um, and it was kind of just like a clusterfuck. Like we had a few different lineups over the years with like a couple different, anywhere from like 3 to 5 people, and we all sort of had like our own big tables and stuff full of gear that was just kind of like a big claustrophobic mess, because I would be on stage not being able to like step back or like turn without bumping into something. And I would also like the whole thing with this kind of setup where I have like basically 2 keyboards and then like a bunch of digital stuff, is I was constantly juggling between like presets and trying to remember like, okay, we're going into this song, which means that like this keyboard has to be on patch 5A and the bass station has to be on patch number 4, and I got to make sure that like the drums are set up correctly on my computer. And it just got to be very stressful, and I found myself really dreading shows and live performance, because I would be so anxious like the day of. I would be anxious about sound check and whether like sound check would go well, if we would even have time to properly sound check after like we set up all of our stuff, and then the actual performance would be kind of just like a frenzied haze of like rapidly switching through presets and making sure everything was on the right track. And it was not something I could like get into and enjoy. Like, because what I realized was the whole thing that I liked about performing was just the expression of it, of just being able to like get into the music, get into the fact that people around you, around me, are vibing out to it. Um, and it's hard to do that when your brain's just like constantly thinking about like, oh, okay, what's coming up next? What do I need to set my synth to? Um, so that band fell apart, as bands do, and um, I found myself at kind of like a crossroads of sort, where I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what do I want to do? How do I want to be making music? How do I want to be performing? Do I even want to be performing? You know, or like, why? Um, so let's go back to that. Why? Well, for me, I like to have fun. That's why I chose a fun font. Let's say why perform. And let's just put aside the material conditions of the music industry and the fact that live performance is one of the few ways to actually make money as a musician these days. Um, so my golden rule is if I'm not having fun, just kind of, and that doesn't mean that like every single show has to be like, wow, like a transcendently entertaining time for myself. It just means that like in general, like if I find myself dreading shows, then I'm doing something. I should change something that I'm doing, because I shouldn't be like making myself miserable by doing this. So fun is important, and by that, I just mean that you should be getting something out of it, some kind of catharsis, because like we don't all make fun music. Sometimes we make really depressing, sad, or angry music, and that's fine too, obviously. And you don't need to be like having fun doing it, but like it should be enriching to you as the performer, in some way. Um, and audience, um, having an audience, having someone there listening to your music, being able to like be in a room and like play a sound and have people react to that sound and have that like reactive energy kind of like feedback into you and influence your decisions as a when you're on stage. I think that's very important. That's what it kind of like. Obviously, being in a pandemic, that's how that kind of really drove home for me how important it is to just like be present with your audience. Um, because I struggle a lot with like engaging, and by engaging with the audience, I don't mean like you have to be doing banter and stuff like that. I just mean that like be aware of what your audience is doing and how they're reacting to your music, and like even if it's bad or something. Um, because yeah, during the quarantine, I was doing like live streams and stuff, and it was such a weird, freaky experience performing on a live stream, as I'm sure many of you know. And obviously, like it has its advantages for sure, but at the same time, it's like you finish playing a set, and when you're used to like getting applause or something, you get nothing. You just get like an empty room. You might see some like replies in a chat or something, but it's alienating. And so throughout the pandemic, I was like, as soon as I'm playing live again, I want to be more engaged. I guess engaged with the audience, not so focused on just like staring at my gear the whole time, but actually like looking at the audience. Sounds simple, sounds obvious, but um, so let's get into it. Let's get into the gear, the stuff. Get out of here. All this. Oh, I don't know how to. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, and if at any point in this anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm so sorry. I keep tabbing out of things. So the big revelation moment I had was when before the final show of the band I was playing with, um, my laptop broke. My important laptop that had all of like the drum parts and stuff on it, and I realized I needed to rent a bunch of gear to make up for it right before this final show. Um, so I rented a mixer. We're gonna put that there. We're gonna call this a mixer, and TB. What was it? TB. Oh my god, TB3 drum machine? Question mark. Can someone help me out? Hold on. I think it's TR8 actually. TR8. Yes. Excellent. Thank you so much. So TR8. Yeah. So this guy. Let's undo that. So I got these like the night before a show. I also had, I think, just like a bass station up here. Bass, I'll just write bass. A mono synth, basically. And then I had like a vocal effect thing down here. Oh, yep, you're so right. You are so right. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for telling me that. And what I found out about the TR8 drum machine, which has a built-in sequencer down here, was that sequencers are a lot of fun. I had a really silly idea in my head that sequencers were there as just to kind of like fill in for like if you didn't have a bass player or something, you might get a sequencer to like replace that bass player. Because all the sequencers I had used were kind of like clunky. They weren't really designed for like live performance. They were the kind of thing you had to like set up the sequence in advance and then you kind of just played it in the moment. But with this, I found out that sequencers are actually a lot of fun. You can really easily set up drum loops on them that it's so silly to talk about because I had such a wrong-headed idea of of like sequencers and backing tracks. I had a very narrow idea. I thought they were like cheating in some way, which is stupid because there is no cheating in live music. There is lying. You can lie a lot. But there's no cheating because there's no rules. That's just how it is. You can do whatever you want. You can get on stage with whatever instrument you want, make it sound however you want. It's fine. But the mixer was really, the mixer and the sequencer was big brain moments for me. When I had, because before I had this mixer, I was sending out everything individually. So the bass station would go out to the mixer, the sound person, the drum machine would go out to the sound person, or the what I was using as a drum machine, which was my laptop. But I found out once I could just put everything through a mixer and just send the mixer out to the sound person, it helped. It just glued everything together. It helped me think of everything that was in front of me as like a single instrument, as opposed to all these disparate, separate things that I would have to kind of play individually. Suddenly with a mixer, I had like immediate control to the volume of every single thing in my setup, which made a huge difference. I think I was talking about this earlier. The problem with like presets and stuff, like when I was like rapidly flipping through presets on every instrument I had to figure out, to get ready for the next song. One of the big problems of that is often the presets would have come at different volumes, and you can like spend hours, going through all your presets and leveling them all out, making sure they're all like exactly the same, so you're not like switching between one super loud organ sound to like a super quiet pad. You can do that till you're blue in the face, but you'll still, I found that I still was running into like that problem during live shows where like I would switch to a preset and not know where exactly the volume would be on it. So having basically a volume setting for every single instrument all in one place, all within an easily accessible location, was huge. It was huge. And being able just to send a single like stereo output to the sound guy took just so much stress off of the hold on. It took so much stress off of sound check and setting up, because then what I could do was just set up everything at once, and then like when it was our time to go up, I just bring the whole thing up onto stage and then send the mixer out to the sound person. So I'm going to quickly what am I going to do? I'm just going to very quickly show you my setup here, and then I'm going to open up Ableton Live and kind of do a very like stripped down version of what I'm talking about, because one thing I want to emphasize is none of this is dependent on any specific piece of gear. This is all stuff you can do. You can do it all digitally if you like. You can do it all like you don't need a modular setup for what I'm about to talk about or anything like that. I'll get into why I use that stuff later in a moment. But yeah, so as you can see here, we have a sequencer in the bottom left here, which is a BeatStep Pro, which I'll be getting into in a second. Let's move this mic closer to me. Oh, sorry. Okay, where are we going? So we have this BeatStep Pro. We have a modular synth that I'm using as a mono synth. I usually have one polyphonic keyboard type thing, and then I have a drum machine. And also the cool thing about here, let me get this back. So it's actually pretty straightforward. It's a pretty obvious kind of setup. Hold on. Erase all that again. So in the corner we have sequencer / master brain. So this controls the clock. Everything is clocked to this. And then we'll have a mono synth up top, a poly synth, drum machine, all going into a mixer up here. And the mixer's got to have an aux for effects. That's important. One of the best things about using a mixer is that you can send any instrument to like an effects channel. So that's what I'm doing with my modular synth as well. I'm using it as a mono synth and also as effects. So I can send the drum machines to there. I can send the poly synth. And the master brain, aka the sequencer, it can sequence both the mono synth, the drum machine, also the poly synth, but I don't usually use it like that. And it all gets synced up easily. And I'm going to get into that right now. So let's go into Ableton Live 11. I'm going to just quickly rearrange some stuff here. So all right, that's a good shot of the BeatStep Pro. So I love this BeatStep Pro so much. It's got MIDI out, it's got USB connectivity, and it's got several CV outs for going into the modular. So it's really good as like an all-purpose sort of tool because I'm sending the MIDI to the drums, um, the octo rack, not the octo rack. I don't have an octo rack. The Electron, Digitact. Like I don't know the names of anything. Um, so yeah. So the BeatStep Pro has three kind of sequencers on it. It's got two mono sequencers that you can connect directly to modular stuff, or you can use it for MIDI as well. And then it has a drum sequencer channel. And each channel, you can set it to whatever MIDI channel you want. And so we're going to use this primarily to drive a bunch of things in Ableton. And we're also going to use this keyboard over here, this DX7, strictly as a MIDI keyboard for now. So this is, we're going to pretend all we have is this BeatStep Pro and this MIDI keyboard. And we're going to see what we can do with it. So shrink this down. And that's all there. Do. Bring this to top. Okay. So here we are. We're in Ableton. First thing I'm going to do, and like I'm sorry if this is, I know that a lot of you are performers. A lot of this might be like super basic stuff, but I'm going to do it anyways. And if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, let's go. So I'm going to kind of emulate the mixer setup. So before I do anything, I want to make 4 channels. I'm going to go drums, mono synth, poly synth, and then effects. What's the 4th channel? What am I doing? Effects. We'll say effects. All right. So let's color these red. Why not? And you'll see why I'm doing it this way in a second. So now let's start putting down some drums. We're going to put down a 505 right here. Just going to make sure it's working. I'm going to set it to channel 10. And then on my BeatStep Pro, we'll set this drum channel to channel 10. And let's make sure. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just got to do this just because of the way the BeatStep Pro is set up at the moment. I got to drop the pitch of what it's sending out. There we go. Finally, some music. None of this just rambling. So we have a 505 on channel 10, and we're going to set the audio to drums. And we're going to make sure that all of these are no input. So it's not getting input from anywhere but what we send to it. And I'll explain why I'm doing this. It'll come very clear very soon. So got a 505. Let's do a 606. And then we'll do, can you guess? We'll do a 707. Look at that. We're going to send these all to drums. And send them all to in as well. We're going to set the 606 to 11. And then the 707 to 12. 12. So now let's get like a little beat going. And we're also going to make sure that Ableton Live is synced to the BeatStep Pro, so that when we add backing tracks, which I will get into, everything will be synced up. And if we use like delays on the effects channel or something, the delays will be synced up. Syncing is good, but not everything. Syncing is good, but it's not everything. So I'm just going to make sure that here in the MIDI stuff, we got sync in from BeatStep Pro, and we're also sending the sync out to the Reface DX, which is the MIDI keyboard I'll be using. Or like, it's not a MIDI keyboard; it's much more than that. It's a really cool instrument, but I'm strictly using it as a MIDI controller right now. So let's get like a cool little beat going. Make sure external is enabled, and it's just, yeah. All right. Pretty cool beat. So what do I have it set up like this? Well, now with this beat playing, we can easily switch. We can switch channels on the BeatStep Pro and switch drum sounds immediately. Now, one other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to map all these out, all the volumes on these out to these knobs here. So the BeatStep Pro has a control mode where you can use all of these knobs and buttons as just straight MIDI CC information and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to, oh, hold on. I believe I need to enable this. There we go. All right. So now, I can switch to any drum sound I want. And with each one, I can control the volume with a single knob because it's all going through one thing. So now let's keep adding stuff. Let's add a little mono synth. Bump 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 bump. Let's see. We'll just go basic. We'll go with the basic guy. And I'm gonna keep the mono synth stuff between channels 1 and 4. Why not? So audio to mono synth, it's on channel 1. So now we go up to our sequencer on channel 1, and yeah, check that out. Now isn't that something? that was a bad choice. All right, I'm gonna add another mono synth just for good measure. This one sounds good. Boom, 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 mono synth. And the reason I'm showing you all this in Ableton is because once I show you all the hardware stuff, I'm often like, I use a hybrid of stuff in Ableton and hardware. Lately, most of what I've been doing in Ableton is like voice processing and backup tracks, but there's been times when I've used like drum machines in Ableton and synth pads and stuff in Ableton. Yeah, it's why the whole like hardware versus software debate is kind of silly to me. Because first of all, a lot of hardware these days is just software in a box. And also because like just because something is like you're using a computer doesn't mean it's not like a thing you're performing with, right? Like as I'm showing you right now, I'm using the same techniques that I would use on all my hardware, but it's all just going into Ableton, and it's just as live. It's just as it's just as good. So now I want to switch this. Yeah. Turn that up a bit. Okay. Going to add something else now. Put this on channel 5. We're going to add our first polysynth. What am I doing? I want to use a cool emulator I have of a Korg Wave Station, which is a very fun keyboard. It's kind of keyboard. Look at all these presets you have. You have Ski Jam, which sounds like, oops, hold on. Send this to polysynth. All right, it's on channel 5. So I'm gonna go onto my MIDI here. Hold on, let me so again, this controller, this keyboard, normally I'm not using this as a MIDI keyboard. I'm using it as a DX7, which is what it is. But there's a super cool looping feature on this that, oh my God. Sorry, 1 second. Your call will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade to Google. Hold on. I gotta start a free trial on this super quick. Oops. Oh no. I'll have to edit that out of, Please ignore my credit card information. Okay, you're all set. Okay, this won't end on us in 10 minutes. Whew, that was almost a disaster. But we're all good. That, I think, is so one thing I kind of determined when figuring out live electronic music and like using backing tracks and things like that is like, okay, at what point is it live? At what point is it just like karaoke or whatever? My rule of thumb is if there's a danger of something going wrong, of going horribly wrong, then it's live. Like if there's risk, it's live. If you're not playing it close to the edge and doing things a little riskily, it ain't shit. It's nothing. Anyways, so going back to this keyboard, it's got a very cool feature. Oh, what's this now? Okay. Good God. So sorry. So we have this wave station. Going to the it's going to the polysynth. Why isn't it? Oh yeah. Here we go. And my favorite thing about this keyboard is it's got this cool looping feature that it loops the MIDI notes that you put into it, which means that you can change the sound after the fact. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So let's get this. Ooh, okay. Let's turn down that a bit. Turn that up a bit. Hit record. It's going to wait for me to input the first note, and then it'll start recording, which is great. I love a thing that does it. I don't love having a timeout when I hit start on a, So let's go. Oh, I hit a note. It did nothing. Hold on. Fuck. All right, here we go. So right now this wave station is playing like a drum loop. It's not quite syncing up, so I'm just gonna change it. That's very low. I'll try this again. There we go. So now those MIDI chords are looping, and they are in sync with the BeatStep Pro because the BeatStep Pro is syncing Ableton and Ableton is syncing the keyboard. And so now what I can do is on the fly, I can just go like, change the sound. That's a bad sound. There you go. Listen to that cello ensemble. And then with the BeatStep Pro here, there's a randomize and probability setting, so I can turn that up. Adds in a couple little like fun quirky drum hits. Yeah, listen to that. And because I have all these drum machines set up with different channels, I can go like, change it to a different drum sound. Now it sounds kind of better. Ooh. Cool. So you see how that all works? Now, oh boy, I meant to get into this rant earlier on. So, we all have, there's a lot of questions you need to ask yourself when you're setting up any kind of like setup, any kind of like assortment of instruments, because if you're trying to recreate a song that you've written, that's a very different set of tools that you'll need than if you're just straight improvising. And I like to do both. I love improvising. I can get so kind of into what I'm doing when I'm improvising more so than I can when I'm like, you know, trying to recreate a song that I've written or something like that. It's just a lot more freeing to me, which has its pros and cons. But the point is, the way I structure a set, I like it to be like mostly improvised, and then like throw in 2 or 3 songs that I've written. And what you can do with a setup like this, you can arrange it in so many ways. Let's get into backing tracks. Then I'll be able to show you what I mean. Okay. So I'll show you how I would blend. I would transition from an improvised thing like that to a song that I wrote. So I have backing tracks for all of my pre-written songs. Like I was saying earlier, I had a lot of stigmas against backing tracks when I was younger that I've since come to just, I was a fool. I was young. I was a silly little fool, as we all were, and some of us still are. I still am a silly little fool. So we're going to grab my instrumental of a song I wrote called Tar Beast off of my most recent album, Swelter, Molt, Sweat, and Metal, which is right there. It's available on Bandcamp and all that. So I have... this is going to be hold on. This is going to be a bit of a thing. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, you can still hear me. Okay, so I had to move my mic over. I have a really complicated setup going on right now, and I just needed a way to put my vocals into Ableton to show you what I'm about to show you. So I have the instrumental track and I want to rename this effects channel to backing tracks. And we're going to send this whole group to there. So we have the instrumental of the track, and we have a MIDI channel here. And what this MIDI channel does is actually going to be sent to an auto-tune plugin that I use called Volca Synth. Check. Okay, 1 second. Let me figure this out. Okay, so I have a dry channel here that I'll use, and I have this affected channel that is going to receive MIDI from over here. MIDI, so MIDI to 11 audio vocal synth. And then okay, so now no audio. Okay. So then what I'm gonna do, oops. I don't know why that. Okay. Okay, I do know why that happened. Sorry, I do know why that happened. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, right. So I'm going to assign this play button here to a button on a button on my BeatStep Pro. So I have this whole, I don't even know if that's in the view right now. Yeah, you can't tell, whatever. So this row right here, I'm going to be using to trigger the backing channels, the backup channels, backing track channels. Okay, so make sure that's in. Okay. So with this all set up, let's go. Let's do this. So I'll be improvising. Got a cool drum loop going, bass loop going. Ableton is synced up to it. And at a push of a button, I can just bring in. Hold on. So I bring the tempo down to the tempo of the song I'm about to play. And then I can go like, and that way I can easily transition. And then I have the auto-tune vocals ready to go. So as I will, as you can tell, my voice is being changed along with the melody of the song. It wasn't perfectly in sync because I forgot to make sure that the file was working in sync. The whole idea is that I can transition easily from playing live beats to go. It's so annoying because when there's not a MIDI note playing, the vocal doesn't play at all. Like it's just off. So that's why I'm making these weird pauses. But anyways, so that's get out of here. So that's Ableton. That's just a very sort of sketch of my larger setup, which I'll get into right now, which is a little bit more exciting than just like floundering around in Ableton. But the whole point is that like just by using like different MIDI channels with a pretty bare bones setup, you can do a lot in something like this. Which again, maybe you already knew everything I just mentioned, but my biggest problem with using like a digital setup, like a fully digital setup like this, first of all, like there's not enough knobs in the world that could map to the parameters I want to map them to, and also like just like the effort of going into each instrument and deciding like, okay, I'm going to want this parameter mapped, I'm going to want this parameter mapped. It just drives me crazy. And it's also not something you can really do on the fly, because if you are, if you got like a drum loop going and you try to change a parameter, say I want to like remap the mono synth volume knob to something else, I'll open up my MIDI and you see like, first of all, the music stops. Second of all, it's taking in those MIDI notes that are playing and like assigning them to the thing. So you have to stop everything. And yeah, so that's why I prefer, oh, and also each of these instruments is kind of like an island, right? Like they're not communicating with each other. You can like mix them kind of in a way that helps them feel like kind of one overall instrument. But I like gear that can be a lot of things and do a lot of things and morph in interesting ways. This whole dichotomy over here is like the mono synth doesn't need to always be playing bass lines. The drum machine, I mean, I guess the drum machine always is playing drums and stuff, but like having EQs in a mixer, you can like change any of these sounds to like fit different frequency ranges, right? In a way that like is harder if you're just sending everything out to the sound person. Because yeah, like often like my modular stuff is doing like percussive stuff and I want it to really blend in with a drum machine, and then other times it's doing like drone-y stuff and I might want it to blend in with like the poly synth. So that's where having a mixer really comes in handy. So get out of here, Ableton. Hello. Okay, we're back. So just let me quickly rearrange this again, because now I'm going to talk about all of my hardware, the fun stuff. Oh. Amazing. I'm just going to quickly bring this loop back in. I'm so sorry. I'm going to run to the washroom super quick. I've been drinking so much coffee. I will be back in like 30 seconds. Please enjoy this tiny little loop in the meantime. All right, thank you so much for that, for letting me do that. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, my headspace with all of this, I want to be thinking about it all as a single instrument that is largely controlled by this sequencer here, so everything is synced up, but also has a lot of like moving morphing parts, so that it can kind of like, what I like about modular synths is how easily it can kind of get away with you and go into territories that you weren't really expecting it to go into. It's a very fluid workflow of just like electricity constantly moving through a thing. I like it quite a lot. I'm going to get rid of this DX7 because I want to, I don't know, I want to use something else. I want to use a different a different polysynth. Doop-a-boop. And I very quickly need to just change something in the Beatstep Pro to get it to work with the Digitact right here. So import, we want Electron setup. And that should be good. Okay. Bring this guy back. The endless cable pull. The endless pulling of cables. Oh, here we go. Alright. So, already you can tell. So I have this going into my modular rig. So this is controlling the pitch of the mutable instruments. This guy right here, fuck. This guy. Mutable instruments plates, that's like my main oscillator. Straight up can't live without it. I love it so much. Because what it is, it's a macro oscillator is what they call it, which means it's like a lot of different things kind of in one. I'm not an analog purist by any stretch. It's a digital module that has a lot of different like algorithms in it, so it can create a lot of different sounds that you can cycle through. A lot of really cool different sounds, and you can actually there's a and what I love about it is you can actually switch through the different algorithms via another CV input. So it's a cool way of kind of like instantly creating chaos and stuff like that. So in a polysynth, I like to either have that like a looping feature like the one in the DX7 that I was kind of showing you, or it's got to have an arpeggiator. So All right, so now we have the drum channel on the Beatstep Pro sending to the Electron right here. I literally just reached out to my screen to try and point at my screen where it is, but that's not helpful. And let's see if so I have, yeah, drums going to the Electron. The MIDI through is going into this Micro Freak. So this is being synced up via MIDI to the Beatstep Pro. So we're going to just have that going. I'm going to turn the arpeggiator on, the Micro Freak. And yeah, it's synced up. I can adjust the so that sound you're hearing is coming from my module, is coming from that mutable instruments plate. Set the arpeggiator to random. Now, we are not hearing the actual Micro Freak, but if we wanted to, we turn it up. Here on my mixer, I have it on its own channel. And I actually have it going through an effects pedal over here, just to make things a little more complicated. And normally I'm using this effects pedal with a guitar, but I'm choosing not to focus on that. I don't know why the camera's moving like that, but whatever. Now, one thing to kind of integrate things a little more, instead of, just stop that for a second. Instead of having the, I'll have the Micro Freak control the pitch of the oscillator in the module synth, but I'm going to have the drum sequencer triggering the actual envelope of it. So that's one of the things I love about the Beatstep Pro is it's got 8 CV outputs, just straight trigger outputs on the back. And we can put those wherever we like. So now every time I hit this note here, it's gonna trigger the mutable instrument plate. So it's still following the pitch that is being arpeggiated through here. And I can turn it down an octave. And right now on the auxiliary effects channel, I have a clouds, a famous module that's like a granular reverb type thing. So I'm going to start sending stuff to that, and we'll see how that goes. And there's also and there's a trigger on the mutable instrument clouds, and I'm going to trigger that with actually no, I'm going to trigger a parameter on the mutable instruments plate, also with the drum machine. So I have right here, I have just like a row of envelope triggers, just like attack decay, very simple to use. Just plug in, and then I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, anytime I hit this note here, it's going to trigger all these envelope sequencers. So then I can take those. And it's affecting different parameters now. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying I'm thinking about this all as one instrument. Is basically having the drum machine trigger multiple things, including drum sounds, but also including like what's the word? It just changes the sound of oscillators and stuff. So oops. Uh-oh. So yeah, so this is a better example. So every time I hit that, does that. Clock output on this BeatStep Pro, and I'm going to plug it into this delay module I have. The auxiliary is going into a delay, and I'm going to show you what that can do. This is not at all how it should sound, but it sounds sick. I don't know if this is because I'm using a janky little adapter or what. Okay. It's going to take a second to figure out what's going on. So anything in the mixer can be sent to the... Why is that sound so... Check. Oh, check. I don't know. I caught it. Didn't break it. Is the stream still going? Are we still here? Oh, it's zoomed in now. That's perfect. That's what I want. That's exactly what I'm going for. Alright, check. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is sounding a little more normal now. Check. I don't know why that delay is sounding so bad. I'm I'm so sorry. There's an auto zoom. I turned on an auto zoom type thing on this. Oh, this is a nightmare. Why? Why are you doing this? Anytime I zoom out, it zooms back in. Does anyone know what's going on? Hold on. Okay, I'm just gonna exit this for a second. 1 second. Give me a second to restart this. Oh, why? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Everything's okay. Oh, I think I might know what the problem is. I think I might know what the problem is. Okay. Okay, we're good. I'm so sorry. It's always... This is what I'm talking about. Live music, live anything. Gotta embrace those risks. There's a risk that this would happen. Now I don't know how to change the front camera. I'm such a boomer. Alright, we're back. We're back in business. Business is back. Alright, between the delay sounding like shit and all this other stuff, I totally lost my train of thought. Okay, I want to talk about loopers now a little bit, because they're fun. And... okay, there's no sound. Sound there. Sound there. Why is this? Okay, so I've been talking about how I like the BeatStep Pro to have things synced up, have everything's internal clock kind of on the same page. Okay, I'm gonna cut this delay out. So I like having like basic, like everything's internal sequencer is set to the same BPM, but I also like to have like LFOs and stuff going that are not synced up, that are just kind of free forming, follow their own cue, because that's when you can get into like moving shapes that aren't so locked into like a grid. They can kind of like, they're sort of free form, moving on their own. Let's set something like that up. So right now I have this Tides module here, which is just a straightforward LFO. It's going very slowly, and it's just affecting this monosynth part over here. So it's kind of gradually like changing its tone, not in like a super obvious way, but in a way enough that like it doesn't immediately lock into like it doesn't sound like you're listening to a single thing on repeat, right? It sounds like a much more kind of fluid, ever shifting thing. And now what I'm going to do, so this micro freak is going through this guitar pedal just directly. There's some chorus on it. Drive. I like this because it can like add some nice reverb. It's great for recording because this is only like a mono output, it doesn't have any built-in effects. But you throw some reverb on this, and it's like it's beautiful. But I'm going to use the built-in looper, and we're going to build a loop, and it's not going to be perfectly in sync because this looper is not synced up to anything. This looper just runs freeform. And normally I'm using this with like a guitar or something, but I just didn't want to use a guitar today. Let's go. So we start it. And as it's looping, I'm going to like set the arpeggiator to go up more octaves. And I'm going to trigger the loop roughly around where it should go. So now we have the arpeggiator playing against the loop that it just created. And you'll notice over time they'll fluctuate in and out of sync because they're not perfectly synced up. And I love that. I love that sound of like stacking loops on each other. Let's just listen to this mayhem for like a little bit. It does get quite chaotic, it can. When it gets too chaotic, I simply drop it down a half. So you can do a half speed with this pedal, which I love. You can reverse it. Let's bring the drums back in. That's not a drum. So big fan of loopers for that reason. Not a big fan of like basing my whole a whole set off of a looper. Like I'm not a big fan of like I've seen plenty of people do it super cool and like it's super cool ways you can use loopers and stuff. But I personally am not a fan of like playing a loop, looping that, and then like playing stuff over top of the loop and kind of structuring whole songs around just like loops. I much prefer using a loop as like a way to kind of grab something that's going on and then like coming back to it later. So for example, with that loop I just recorded, you know, say I'm playing a song or whatever it is I'm doing. And now I want to you got something else going on, and then we bring that back in, you know? A little blast from the past. A good way to like, you know, a good callback, basically. And it's great when I'm using it with a guitar, because I can just like play some guitar notes, have that loop go, and then like set my guitar down, and like do a bunch of other stuff, and then like hit that loop and bring it back, and then it's like a wizard off stage playing guitar, but it's secretly it's a loop, you know? Think about it. So other stuff I like about this kind of setup. So obviously modular synths are very they can go off in all sorts of different directions. They can morph and shift in unique ways. This digitact as well, I'm a huge fan of, because every single drum sound in there has two LFOs that you can use. And again, the LFOs can be synced or they could not. But you can, for example, set the LFO to the sample itself that is playing in that slot. So now every time I hit that note, like it's playing something different, right? I love that. That is money to me. That shit is pure gold. That's how I make my bread and butter. Is just by any instrument that can do something like this. Because it just adds so much variety and flavor to what's going on. That's why I like to use samplers as drum machines as opposed to something like the TR-8 that I was talking about earlier, which like is more of like an actual synthesizer that has like, you know, a synth bass drum and it sounds like an 808 and it's really good at sounding like an 808, but you don't always want an 808. I don't always want an 808. Often I just want whatever this is, whatever you call this. Another beautiful thing about this setup is it is chock full of redundancies. So if I showed up to a gig and I, for example, I forgot the power cord for my modular kit. I didn't, and there's no other one around at all ever in the universe. That's the last one, and I don't have any power going into my modular synth. I could still very easily do a set using just the Electron, because it's so versatile and powerful, and like the micro Korg. Because again, this is also, all right. I don't know. Everything's just not working today. Yeah, I could do a set with just like the Digitact and the Electron, or if I had the modular kit, but like not the Digitact, I could do a makeshift. I can make a makeshift like drum sounds out of this because the plates is really good at doing like percussive sounds. I also have a braids in here that also does really good percussive sounds. And yeah, so tons of redundancies. That was another big problem I had with using kind of a computer-based setup. Is that like if you nudge a USB cable like from the interface to the computer in the middle of a performance, like it's just going to glitch everything out and like possibly you'll have to restart your computer. So if I'm in that situation, I want to have other things I can rely on to at least like make sound while I troubleshoot the other thing. And that happens all the time. Like at the Bovine Sex Club show back in October, during that very brief, wonderful window when we could all perform and see each other. That exact thing happened. I knocked the USB cable at the beginning of a song that I was singing, like a one with backing tracks, and everything glitched out, and I had to start the song over from the beginning, which is fine because I was pretty early into the song anyways. But that's just like, that's the big risk when using a laptop on stage, which is why I've set this up to be mostly computer free, but I still do need to use a computer for like that auto-tune vocal stuff and backing tracks. Yeah, in a perfect world, and this might be possible, but eventually it would be cool if there was just like a little box that could play backing tracks and could auto-tune my voice simultaneously, and have like the kind of tempo control and stuff that I need. I could probably build a little Raspberry Pi device that does something like what I want to do, but I don't know. That's a lot to think about right now. And I got jelly for brain. Honestly, we've probably all found that out together today. All right, so we have like a good 20 minutes left of this. I could ramble for a bit more. Does anyone have any questions about anything at all? Anything anybody wants to ask? Oh, there's a chat. Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat. How can you deal with anxiety around all the things that can go wrong performing electronic music? How do I deal with that anxiety? Well, a big part of it is what I was talking about earlier, which is streamlining my setup so that when I show up to a gig, I don't need to communicate anything complicated to the sound guy or girl, sound person. No binaries here. Um, yeah, basically having like redundancies is a huge part of it. Having a simple setup from the sound person's point of view. So again, I'm not like stressed about like, okay, I'm going to need to like send the person like my keyboard and all this other stuff. Having everything being able to have it set up kind of offside to the stage so I don't need to be like standing on stage kind of setting everything up. Um, and the rest is just like to take everything in stride and not uh and just like accept the fact that things can and will go wrong, and to kind of like just be fun about it in the moment. Like don't get all like frustrated on stage when like something isn't sounding how it should. Kind of like embrace it, like maybe cringe along with the audience if something like noticeably goes wrong. um but like the whole point of this setup is to explore sounds and to like kind of guide electricity through this big machine. And it will take you to strange and unexpected places. And yeah, you just kind of gotta embrace it. um, I'm still anxious all the time, but definitely having like a streamlined setup that, again, for me, like I know like all the master volumes in one place, so if something's sounding horrible, I can quickly turn it down. Um, I have a master volume for everything, so if it's truly like I don't know what's going on, I can just quickly snap everything off. And that goes like a long way to helping just kind of being prepared and knowing like what could go wrong. Um, and yeah, having redundancies. Do I use VCV Rack at all? I have, yeah, I like it. I don't use it as much um, as I could, mostly because part of my I get very overwhelmed when I have a lot of options, which is why I like using hardware that like has physical limitations. Um, so when I use VCV Rack, I'm kind of like immediately sort of like, oh, there's so much stuff I can do. That's kind of my problem with digital in general, is that I'm always thinking about like, okay, but I can do this, but like I can do so much more. So like, why don't I just? And you can just like kind of keep adding stuff until your computer crashes, basically. Um, so I like that. That's one of my favorite things about modular stuff. Is that like what you see is in front of you, like hardware. It's all in front of you. It's all contained within itself. Um, but VCV Rack is super cool. Like it's super cool for like testing out modules that you might want to try. Um, Especially like I said, like I love the mutable instrument stuff, and a lot of those are digital anyways. And so like like they sound literally the exact same. Like there's no like sonic difference between like a mutable instruments module and using it in VCV Rack, which I think is super cool. Um, how do I sound like Burial or Hans Zimmer? Just throw a bunch of dust onto your machines, and then be sad in a McDonald's and smoke a lot of weed. How do you sound? That's how you sound like Burial and Hans Zimmer. Okay, when performing with Ableton, do you run all the tracks through a final bus with compression, EQ, anything else? If so, how do you manage mix bus effects between songs? Um, Let me think. When I'm performing with Ableton, I'm typically short answer is no. I don't use a final bus because it's not the final stage of the mix. I'm using Ableton as an instrument in addition to um, the Micro Freak and the Beat Step Pro and all that. So I'm thinking about it just as I would like any other instrument. Um, and I mean the biggest difference is that like it's with backing tracks, it's like a full range of frequencies as opposed to like, you know, maybe this is just dealing mostly with like high frequencies or whatever. Um, but I have done like Ableton setups that do have like an EQ on the end. Um, but yeah, and short answer, no. I don't run all the tracks through a final bus with compression EQ. I do that when I'm producing. I do that for sure when I'm recording and making songs, but I don't feel the need to do that when I'm using Ableton, because again, I'm just using it as like an instrument in its own sense. Like I'm not using it as like the final master of everything. It's just like another part in addition to the everything that's right here. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I was going to ask if I should get a MIDI to CV clock or a beat step, but honestly, a beat step seems way more versatile. Yes, I would agree, because you can also use a Beat Step Pro as a MIDI to CV clock. Um, yeah, it's crazy versatile. You can use it to like, if you have this plugged into your computer, you can actually use it as a straight up MIDI to CV converter. Like you can it's a little bit janky, but like you can do it. That's how I did it until I for my whole modular career up until I got the yarns, which is over here somewhere. Blah blah blah. Um, I've seen you've been doing work with CV to video control. How are you doing that? Um, I'm doing it in like a very complicated kind of way that I'm not super comfortable with. It's not quite CV to video. What I was doing was I programmed Unreal, um, like the video game engine Unreal, to basically respond to like the volume of what was going into the interface. There is tons of like CV to video kind of gear out there where you can do cool like analog video stuff. But that wasn't what I was doing. I was doing just like the volume of the audio would trigger just like a displacement effect on a sphere. So the louder it would get, just the more weird the sphere would get. So it's not quite CV to video. That is something I'm super interested in and want to get more into, but I haven't really gotten super into that yet. Um, but boo. Do you have any Rex for Baby's First Gear? Some kind of drum pad / sequencer? Um, yeah, I do. Actually, I have one right here. Uh, this is a Volca Sampler. I have the faceplate taken off of it, so it doesn't really you can't really tell what it is. But it's just like a simple little sampler. You can load your own sounds into it. For a long time, I was actually using this instead of this. So I was using this for all my drum sounds because this can sound really powerful. It has a built-in speaker, so it sounds like shit, right? Just but it's got a built-in sequencer. Again, that I can't play. I can't. I don't know why I took the faceplate off of it because I wanted to sand it down because this is like an OK Go branded uh sampler, and I didn't want to have all the OK Go branding on it, so I took off the faceplate to sand it down and rewrite onto it, but I never finished that project. So now I just have like a sampler that is hard to use. um, but they're a lot of fun, and you can put MIDI into them. They sound really cool when you like hook them up to a proper speaker and stuff. Yeah, so I would recommend something in the Volca line. Um, or just get like a Beat Step Pro, honestly, and like use a USB cable to plug it into a computer. Like it's such a fun, cool little device. I'd recommend it a lot. I can't remember how much they go for new. They're probably, I think they're around like $200 or $300, but don't quote me on that. Um, but yeah, that's what I would recommend. Okay. If someone were to get into electronic hardware, what hardware would you recommend that is moderately simple but full of potential? And where have you usually been getting your hardware from? Honestly, I rent a lot of shit from Long and McQuaid. I rent and I finance a lot of stuff because obviously gear is expensive, and it's hard to like drop money on on a piece of gear. So I'm constantly renting stuff and trying it out. Um, as for what hardware I would recommend, um, it's a hard question because like again, it really depends on what you want to use. Like, are you using it for? Do you want like percussion stuff? Cause um, or are you do you want like a polysynth or something? I would actually this micro, I got this micro freak pretty recently, and it's been so much fun. It can do a lot of different sounds. It's got a cool little voice thing in it. You can work as a vocoder. Um, you can hold the arpeggio on it, arpeggiator, so you can just let that run. Um, so a big fan of this micro freak. One of the first pieces of gear I had was a Korg Chaos Pad, which is like a looper slash just like effects unit. And that was kind of the first piece of like electronic gear that I own, and that was super cool. Like that's more for affecting things. It doesn't like emit sounds of its own, but that's a really cool thing. Um, but there's tons of like pretty affordable, like I was just talking about. The whole Volca line is very affordable, and that's a lot of fun to get into. Um, yeah, I'm going to move on. Um, Bespoke. I haven't heard of it, but that sounds cool. Open source modular DAW with some pretty creative modules. Nice. Cool. Oh, excuse me. Whoopsie doopsie doopsie. All right. Well, with that all said, any more questions? Anything else you want to hear me do, see me do, watch me do, hear me do? Yes, the Micro Freak, Micro Brew. Yeah, all that stuff. Joel is super cool. Big fan of that stuff. Awesome. Well, okay. I guess that wraps it up. Thank you all so much for coming out, for being here, for hanging out, asking questions, enduring my gaffes. Um, it's been a blast. I super appreciate it. And yeah, the video for this will be up somewhere at some point if you want to revisit it for whatever reason. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy your the rest of your Saturday. And again, thank you all so much. I'm glad. I'm glad you were. This was informative. Um, I would love to do this again sometime. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. I'm going to end this call now. Good seeing you all. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye.